Okay, how do we stop this? No, Starline. Well, hello to you, all my friends out there in Substack world, you subscribers, followers, inquirers, those who are on Instagram and all the other socials. I'm Scott Spradlin, and I'm recording this video in the world headquarters of North Star Therapy, which is also the world headquarters for Wichita DBT, where we offer comprehensive adherent dialectical behavior therapy services to folks around the state of Kansas, and also the home of Wise Mind for the Distracted Mind, DBT for adult ADHD. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to give you a brief overview of a very brief overview that I shared with our DBT consultation team yesterday. This is very pared down in part because I had presented it to a team of folks who are all DBT intensively trained. And so there was much we didn't need to present to them fundamentally. So if there seem to be a few holes in what I'm going to say today, come back for the other material and fill all that in. Mind you, this was put out for a group of providers who practice DBT, and a few of us are also ADHD adults, including myself. So this is in part why this particular topic of adapting DBT for adult ADHD is very important to me. And I understand a lot of those struggles firsthand, subjectively, existentially, and it's very important. I'm going to skip past these learning objectives because you're not getting CEUs like the professionals were, but you can take a look at those. And what we did discuss was basically how DBT can teach skills that will improve the management of intense emotions, impulsivity, mood swings, stress intolerance, and related behaviors. So I'm giving you the learning objectives after all. And also look at how DBT teaches skills to improve executive functioning and how DBT teaches approaches to activate the emotions needed for task initiation and persistence, and about actionable strategies. And again, this is very thumbnail sketch material here, so get what you can out of it. And again, we always welcome your comments and your private messages and your interactions and truly your dialogue, whether you're a professional or you're a lay person who's wanting to learn more about whether or not DBT might be helpful to you, then this could be helpful. It'd be helpful dialogue for us, help us to continue to refine this through, communal dialogue. Really, that way we can hopefully avoid delusional self-deception around some of our ideas. So, of course, what we like to tell our folks that we present to, and I'll say this to all of you also, that we're those of us who are providers anyway, we're a community of providers serving a community of clients. And this is something that's been beautiful about DBT since I started training in it 30 plus years ago, that it's a holistic approach in terms of, the interpersonal is extremely important, and the community of practitioners is very helpful and important as a way, again, to help therapists and practitioners increase their skillfulness with the therapy and their approach in working with clients, and also to enhance their motivation, help keep us moving along when we feel discouraged, stuck, or otherwise frustrated with how our treatment approach is going. So this is a really important part of that. And when we do trainings, when Mariah and I do trainings, we like to put this out there to our colleagues to say, we're not here as know-it-alls. We're here as folks that have a specific set of knowledge and skills we'd like to share with others, and that we recognize and honor that you know things that we know anything about. I don't think we enjoy know-it-all presenters. But these are tools and technologies that really do work. And what do we bring together when we have time together in training? We all bring presence. Even here in this moment of recording this video, I am doing what I can to be as present as I can to present to you this, not this thumbnail view of the thumbnail sketch of DBT for adult ADHD, but when we're meeting, whether it's online or in person, presence is very important. And this is what we bring in our time together. So when you're watching the video, hopefully you can bring your presence, your willingness, that we all bring a willingness to be open and to learn and be able to gain insight and even wisdom, really. And we bring gratitude. I bring gratitude hear now that you, whoever you are watching this, and I'm especially grateful if you watch it all the way to the end. And I'm hoping that I bring this with the sincere humility. We have to be careful about claiming humility. It may nullify the humility. We like to joke here in our area. We live in Sedgwick County, and I will often tell folks, of course, I'm not the most humble person in Sedgwick County. I'm only the second most humble person in Sedgwick County. I don't want to be greedy or arrogant. I hope you appreciate that attempt at humor. And connection. This is what we do when we come together. We bring connection through the work that we do together. And again, this is going to be pre-recorded, but there's still a sense of connection which we can build through, the kind of this parasocial platforms that we have. For sure, they are no substitute for real incarnate flesh and blood relationships. They're a really nice adjunct. So I hope that you will remember your humanity while you utilize these technologies, and that you spend more time touching grass or snow, as the case may be with us the weekend of this recording. You get the idea, probably. So what are we dealing with adult ADHD? Well, we are dealing with executive function impairments. And this is a graphic that Mariah came up with, and she and I have done a lot of work in terms of poring over research literature, looking at those folks who have done the most robust studies on the neurobiology and the development of ADHD, as such as we call it these days. And of course, I want to sneak this in here. Not much of a sneak since I just outed myself on it, but ADHD as a phenomena has been in the clinical literature probably for almost 100 years. In psychological literature, it's gone by various names over the years as words and language change in all fields and in all common use. We have lots of examples of that, but we're not here for linguistic studies. But we can say that ADHD is not necessarily really a disorder of attention per se. That is certainly a feature of what we call ADHD, whether we're talking about inattentive subtype or hyperactive subtype or combined subtype or not otherwise specified. Attention is a problem, but attention is what a lot of us think it is, and ADHD isn't what a lot of us think it is, including, and with all due respect and with all humility, many of my colleagues, mental health professionals of all credentials, all the way from master's level therapists such as myself, upwards to the PhDs and PsyDs and MDs and psychiatrists and so on, have a fairly often impoverished knowledge base of ADHD. And that's not to be insulting. I like to put a comparison out there to that as I say that, is that, for example, when it comes to referrals for anorexia that I might receive for patients, I refer those cases to my colleagues whom I know have specific training, knowledge, and expertise in treating that disorder, because it is out of my depth and it's out of my scope of practice, and I could do serious harm if I attempted to treat that person with what I know and don't know. And so we all have to know what our limitations are as practitioners. And so I'm hoping that this will be received in the sense that we want to broaden our understanding of what we're talking about with ADHD. And so our ADHD octopus here that shows our executive function challenges, it challenges the constellation of executive functions that we have, such as our ability to activate attention, to direct attention. Also, how is our working memory internally working, both verbal and nonverbal, and how we are able to continue to construct within our mind, both visually imagining ourselves carrying through on tasks and establishing materials to prepare for certain activities so that we can be fairly efficient in our self-organization, even in simple daily tasks such as laundry, meals, making the bed, getting to work, paying the rent, and so on. All these sorts of things. There's also a difference in terms of, so there are some weaknesses, by the way, for ADHD adults in those particular areas and those neurobiological functions. Executive functions are kind of a twin thing, if I put it this way. Just as we would say for, somebody who experience, like when we're developing as human beings neurobiologically, we have a number of executive functions that are coming online on the biological level, like our muscles develop in a way and our bones develop in a certain way. That's just happening physiologically. And then acting upon ourselves and then influences of the environment and then us interacting with the environment will affect muscle size, how much fat we carry with us in our bodies, and how we relate with others is also socially and interpersonally influenced, and that is likewise true with with the executive functions. They're both neurobiology and they're skill, and skill can be adapted through experience and hopefully through modeling, and hopefully modeling with folks and adults in our lives from the beginning upward who can help scaffold us and teach us skills to compensate for some of these impairments that we may have. So the challenges include everything from avoidance and procrastination, cognitive inflexibility, also just difficulty taking perspective, a difficulty in adapting skillfully, and difficulty problem solving. Definitely poor time estimation, which relates to the lack of time awareness, or what is often called time blindness, not able to relate to time. Again, whether it's just sort of the felt sense of time, and you kind of have an idea about like, oh, I think I've been here for about a half hour. Some folks can kind of read that, and then in particular, if they're near a window during the day and they can see the sun changing and all that, they kind of have an idea about that. In fact, casinos, right? I mean, this is something that they set up there. The casinos are set up in a way where they're trying to thwart time awareness, and they're trying to induce time blindness, right? You don't know where the exits are, the carpets are weird patterns and so on to disorient you, kind of make it difficult for you to leave, offer you some alcohol while you're gambling, these sort of things to impair your executive function. So even if you're a neurotypical person, it's a little more difficult to get out of the casino than it is to leave, say, a JCPenney's, I think, unless there's a really great sale there, and if you still have a JCPenney's in your town. Difficulty with organizational, in terms of mental information in the physical world, so being able to organize things internally, but then also outwardly. Again, we're preparing material for the next day. Are your clothes ready to go? Are they already clean? Do you have them set out so that when you wake up in the morning, you can just get dressed and go? Or are you pulling your laundry out of a hamper and you're feeling frustrated because everything you have is wrinkled because you didn't fold it or iron it or steam it or whatever? So there we go. So poor scaffolding skills, not understanding how to scaffold ourselves. And we're going to be looking primarily at adults, and that's what we really aim at. And so as we age into adulthood, we lose a lot of our scaffolding, if not all the scaffolding almost. As we know, when we're, even in invalidating environments and somewhat chaotic families, there often is scaffolding because adults tend to know kids can't do things that adults can do. So what do parents do if they have some average skill even or better in raising their kiddos? Um, they feed their kids, right? They don't tell the 5-year-old to go fry their own eggs necessarily. They tend to make them breakfast, whatever it might be. They help them get ready. They brush their hair and so forth. And eventually, as we age up, right, a lot of those things are things we can do on our own. We start brushing our own hair. We start dressing ourselves. We start to experience a joy even in being somewhat independent in those things and feeling, and being joyful about maturation. And then when you get truly mature, then a little older, kind of like, maybe I'd like to back that up a little bit. But as we become, and also the same is true for schoolwork, even all the way through high school. Some parents have study hours for their kids. There's bedtimes that are set. There are curfews. These are all forms of scaffolding, and also check-ins. We're eating dinner together. Hey, did you do your homework today? Do you have any tests coming up? I'm going to give you a ride to your soccer practice or your football practice, whatever it may be, or your music lesson. But there's this sense of being prompted by the environment. There's relational accountability, which is also nurturing. And so there's just a lot of guidance along the way. Plus, you have the structure of school. You know, you have to be there at a certain time, go home at a certain time. There's a syllabus. There is a map of what it takes for you to graduate. And so all these things guiding you in a particular direction. Then you're an adult. And if you haven't acquired these skills for yourself, and you, let's say you don't know you have ADHD, or even if you do, you think maybe the medication is enough by itself, but you don't work on learning skills to mitigate these executive function impairments, then you will run into significant trouble because you don't know how to structure yourself in your time, and so on. So I've said plenty about that. And so we're going to need to be able to do that and being able to transition from distractions, and so on. But let me say this whole problem with like attention is a head, shoulders, knees, and toes problem. It's a whole person problem. And it involves cognition. It involves neurobiological functions. It involves what am I doing with my body? It involves my ability, again, to work on my environment so that my environment works upon me. And hopefully I can cultivate some meaningful relationships to help me care, to have a reason why. Why should I do any of these things? Our ADHD constellation here, I'm going to leave that up for a moment. It'll be in the video, so you can always rewind and come back to it, and take a look at it when you would like to, just for your reference. And so in terms of what we're doing in DBT, we have a frame, dialectics. And what does that mean? Dialectics is our frame for transcending either or polarized thinking, emotions, behavior, and so on, in a way to hopefully soften rigidity and finding kind of integration, even synthesis between apparent opposites. Being able to also take perspective, learning with other skills to be able to back up and ask ourselves, what is it that we're leaving out of a particular situation? Or I'm frustrated with myself perhaps because I've missed a deadline again. Okay, how am I going to handle that? Do I go into a shame spiral, a shame downward spiral, and waste 15 minutes or half hour suffering and being miserable? Or can I experience the pain of embarrassment, be able to tolerate that, and also register information that can come from that, which can help me to adapt and improve behaviors in time and task management, but also in relationships that may be adjacent to those tasks, so that I keep good relationships with people I work with. Dialectics is both and thinking. It allows for synergistic living and behaving and so on. It is a way of considering that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So for those of you who maybe know the term Gestalt, it's this wholeness, and that our behaviors, our ADHD related kind of stuff does not happen within a vacuum, but there's a whole set of things happening, including our distant history, our recent history, the present moment, our skill set, our biology, the social conditions around us, and whether or not we're in meaningful, supportive relationships. It also means that reality is dynamic. Nothing is stuck. So we have a failing moment, we pick ourselves up and we get going again. The chief dialectic in DBT is the tension between acceptance and change. And that was one we reviewed with the team. And we don't necessarily hold these in a perfect harmony from one moment to the next. There's a tension between these, but we often oscillate to one for a little bit to accept that we blew a deadline, for example. Okay, I did that. Of course, I did that. I've been doing it for years. Of course, I have executive function impairments, and I accept that I'm responsible. So this is also good news for everybody, and the folks that love or try to support adults with ADHD, is that ADHD is not an excuse for not fulfilling one's obligations or duties. It will help everybody understand why it is difficult for particular individuals to do things that are seemingly perfectly simple for neurotypical folks. And then we move toward change. We move toward change, but I cannot change what I cannot accept. As for if I'm not accepting that there's a problem, there's nothing to change, right? Excuse me for a moment. This gives you an overview of what comprehensive DBT looks like, the different modes and purposes of DBT, the jam, the main jam, if you will. The most important thing in DBT proper, adherent DBT, is the individual DBT therapy, where the therapist and the client have they work a relationship that's authentic, meaningful, collaborative. It becomes kind of this integrating force within which all these other components are flowing out of and then circling back into in a recursive manner. We have in DBT, by the way, in the words of John Vervaeke, we have an ecology of practices and these distinct, related, overlapping, and complementary practices. And we also have community. We have a community to help us to overcome our self-deception, which was what we need, often need community for. That's a whole other story. I'm about to open a can of worms. One thing that I would say that we begin to emphasize a little more as we adapt DBT for adult ADHD in the treating environment component is we're specifically looking at teaching environmental scaffolding, how to work with externalizing tools, and how to garner and cultivate supportive accountability in one's environment so you can continue to do all these things. Treatment hierarchies in traditional DBT tend to be in the top, with folks who come out of, say, histories of suicidality, self-harm. They're presenting with those kind of high order, potentially life-threatening behaviors. That would be our number one ongoing behavioral targets. And then we're simultaneously tracking in therapy so we're looking at that every week. You have vulnerabilities to life-threatening behaviors? We're also tracking, are there therapy interfering behaviors like missing therapy, not doing homework, yes, butting the therapist in dialogue, and so forth, being chronically late and that kind of thing. And then we want to look also at what are the quality of life interfering behaviors that are problematic for folks. In working with adults with ADHD for right now, see, we're open for editing here. We're open for dialogue. As far as ADHD adults go, the targets are constantly moving. I mean, this is true. We're going to rule out that there are any life-threatening behaviors, self-harm, or any active addiction which may be imminently life-destroying or life-threatening. Is the primary target working memory? Is it emotional regulation, or is it staying on time with tasks? So for right now, what we're doing is we're saying, well, the primary target for our adults will be to take committed action every day in practicing DBT skills. Because you can do that no matter what's changing, no matter all the multiple targets that are changing in the fields and awareness of a person with executive function impairments, they can always come back to practicing mindfulness, distress tolerance, and emotional regulation, and a little bit by little bit over time. And they can target also, of course, therapy interfering behaviors, which is a topic for another time, because that's a rich topic for sure with adults with ADHD. It is. Those are our skills we're looking at. I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but as we teach mindfulness and ADHD adults, sometimes our adults will say things like, "Oh, you know what? I can't learn mindfulness. I can't pay attention. Don't you know I have attention deficit disorder, right?" We all chuckle together and say, I know, I can't pay attention either." That's why we practice paying attention. And we do that with a myriad of embodied practices to help learn how to turn on the light, if you will, to turn on the flashlight. This is language we've borrowed from Lydia Zylowska and her co-author and partner in adapting mindfulness practice for ADHD, Mitchell. And how do we turn on the flashlight? How do we switch it on? Not only that, but then how do we guide the beam of the flashlight when it's on? What do we do when the battery runs low? Because that is also problematic. Fatigue tends to bring lower attention. Teaching core mindfulness practices. We teach them that with mindfulness, you can orient your attention. You can reorient your attention when you get a little bit lost, when you get a little distracted. It's okay. That's just kind of part of life in general, right? That's right. So we don't get discouraged. I mean, maybe we get discouraged. Sorry, I don't want to be too rigid on that. But when we're aware that we're paying attention to something that is actually distracting us from our purpose of the moment, or where we want our attention. This is true for, by the way, whether we're trying to file taxes on time or we just want to learn to play the guitar. Where is our attention? Where do we want our attention to be? So when we realize we're off path or that our attention become distracted or we're moving our attention towards something that is irrelevant, then we go, aha. And then we can use our body internally. We can also, muster up some energy, come back to the thing we want to pay attention to. We can also do some refreshment. We can do a little ice water, take a little breath, walk around a little bit and stretch, and all these kinds of things. In DBT for ADHD adults, we're finding it's really important that ADHD adults have a why for all the hows they're supposed to do. For all the have-tos, uh, is there a way to make it more meaningful? We find that is more meaningful through understanding that a lot of the tasks that we struggle with are relevant to people who care about us and want to have a relationship with us and want to count on us, just as we want to be able to count on them in their various capacities. So, DBT provides core mindfulness training. One of the states, we should say, or stance we take is that of wise mind. A wise mind is this state of mind that we can access through bringing an integration of emotion and reason, or what we call emotion mind, with our reasonable mind, and finding some kind of a balance there, and then transcending both. So then we enter into kind of a space of knowing, of intuition, also of understanding, making some, giving ourselves some mental clarity so that we know how to wisely act. I will know why. Why should I file the taxes on time, for example? Lots of great reasons for that, for sure. Because, particularly if you're in a family, if you're an adult who's married or in a domestic relationship, your financial health will affect your partner's financial health. It can affect the quality of life at home if you have children. It can, it can present certain challenges which will make it difficult to build credit, buy a home. You're looking over your shoulder constantly. You're compounding stress. Not only are you compounding interest possibly for unclaimed or unpaid taxes, but you'll be compounding distress, which is distracting, and we don't want that because we believe everybody wants to love and be loved. We think everybody wants to live an integrated life where they are at home in their own body and they are truly self-directed, not just giving into whims and impulses, but really present to themselves, able to guide their directions in valued ways in the light of principles, and to be able to build relationships, to build trustworthiness with themselves, to be able to express love in embodied action. And so we give a tool here on how to practice accessing wise mind. This is something we give to to our DBT practitioners in our team, but also to our clients. Because how do we do it? I mean, there are some tips for that in Marcia Lenahan's treatment manuals for sure, and those are great. We recommend those, of course. And we just happen to come up with this acronym here to help our ADHD clients find their wise mind by waiting, which a lot of ADHD folks don't want to do a lot of times. Sometimes they love to do nothing but wait. But pausing and resisting on the act to impulse, take a moment to breathe and reflect. Inquire. Make an inquiry. What is this emotion? What are the facts of the situation I'm in right now? And sense, you want to connect with your intuition and you want to listen to the gut feelings that you have about the situation, because often we know how to live our way into solutions around particular problems. Sometimes it's accepting the problem, whatever that might be. But we can also find ourselves taking effective actions, and then we have to embody those decisions. So make decisions and act in alignment with your core values and wise principles. That's just an overview, not really the practice, I guess. I'm going to give you this bit here, and I'm going to hurry through a couple more because we've hit we're hitting the half-hour mark. I wanted to keep this at about half an hour. In ADHD, adults, we have a problem with not just kind of the typical cognitive errors or distortions that some call them in cognitive behavioral therapy that are like negative. Oh no, I'm a loser. I'm a terrible person. I'm ineffective. I'm ineffectual, and so on. Nobody loves me, or they should treat me better than they do. How dare they talk to me this way? There's also a problem with incautious optimism. Incautious optimism. And so we've borrowed this language from Noose and Mitchell, and we found this in some of their texts. And so we find that there's often this dialectical tension between an incautious optimism, which will correlate with responses that are associated with a decreased likelihood of engaging in active coping skills, okay? And overly optimistic time estimation, unrealistic expectations, overestimating one's abilities. So, incautious optimism could be expressed this way. You have heard the saying, so close, yet so far away. In this case, we would reverse that and say, it's so far away, yet so close. Time blindness, incautious optimism, excitement, enthusiasm. Oh, the final isn't for 2 more weeks. I got time to study for it. And then it's the day before, and your pals are like, hey, tomorrow's the final. Oh, what? It is. It's so close. It was so far away. But now it's here. And that will cause crises. That will cause distress, problems. And sometimes ADHD adults find a way of managing through these crises and kind of snatching victory from the jaws of defeat at the last minute, which then kind of gives this false impression that this is a really great way to live life. And it's not. I know, I've done a lot of field testing. On the other hand, the opposite extreme, in terms of a cognitive set and frame that an ADHD adult can get into is that of failure expectancy, where we have, on the one hand, a decreased likelihood of engaging with active coping skills because of overly optimistic estimation of time and ability. On the failure expectancy side of things, there emerges in challenges that are unexpected difficulties. And there's a sense of low efficacy. There could be even the self-questioning of like, why bother? Maybe I feel like nobody cares. Why should I care? I won't succeed. My ideas are stupid. And ping-ponging back and forth between those causes a lot of emotional suffering and chaos in all kinds of domains. And so we through mindfulness, want to live our way into balancing incautious optimism with failure expectancy, and rather finding an accurate self-assessment to say, I'm excited about a project, and as I approach it, I slow my roll a little bit so I can evaluate, what do I need to pull this off? What kind of time do I need? What do I need? Any kind of equipment? Do I need to learn some things? Are there other prerequisite skills that I'll need to acquire to be able to achieve this thing I'm optimistic about? And then I have to also reflect on, the best I can, my memory. And this is where we do what we call dialectical stitching with time. What is it I have learned in the past? I remember I've done this before, so I have to tell myself, one of my favorite mottos, by the way, it takes time to do stuff. It takes time to do stuff. So given that, and given I remember the difficulties last time, so I should probably start now. And if I'm having difficulty starting now, I can turn towards scaffolding, externalizing, and community resources. Maybe it's my friends, maybe it's my study group, maybe it's my spouse, partner, maybe it's a friend of mine, maybe it's clergy or therapists. They'll say, I need somebody to care, or I need somebody to be accountable to, or just want to check in with you and let you know, or somebody give me a high five when I change the way I'm doing things. Until we can approach that with, again, mindfulness, observing and describing and participating non-judgmentally, one mindfully, and doing what works, just doing what works. So we can let ourselves off the hook of emotional suffering, I should say unnecessary emotional suffering. There is some suffering that does, in fact, produce character and wisdom, and there's some suffering that is just keeps us trapped and is unnecessary. But with mindfulness practices, we can change the way we think. We can become more flexible, more adaptive. We may still be vulnerable to these patterns, but we can reduce their frequency and how often they happen. So That is what we have for right now. I would like to say thank you for watching this segment. It looks like we're at, I don't know where we're at on time-wise, but I know it's over 30 minutes. So I am going to say thank you for watching this segment. I'll do a second segment with this one to finish it up. And I hope you're learning something. Oh, there it is. Looks like we're at about 35 minutes. So that's what we've got for now. I hope that you will be warm, loved, and well fed. If you're in the cold climes, please make sure you have your cell phones charged and blankets and so on, so you can stay warm. And I appreciate again you watching this and your support for Wise Mind, Wise Life, and also for Wise Mind for Distracted Mind. You all have a great day. Be mindful out there.